What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, as every Lions fan knows, the pass rush in Detroit hasn't really been a thing since Matt Patricia got here. You know, we used to be a very good defense. We used to have a very good defensive line that got pressures, got sacks, that was one of the best in the NFL, and absolutely dominated week in and week out. However, under Matt Patricia, under his reign, the defensive line has gotten significantly weaker. Under Matt Patricia, the pass rush has gotten worse, the defense in general has just gotten worse. And today I wanted to go over how bad this pass rush really is, because it is really bad, and I don't think people realize how bad it actually is, and talk about some of the reasons that the Detroit Lions are lacking in the pass rush department and maybe what they can do to fix it in the near future. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel, as it takes only 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and helps me push this channel out to more Lions fans and more NFL fans such as yourselves. So if you could do that, I would be greatly appreciative, and it would help the channel out a lot. But with that being said, let's get into talking about this Detroit Lions pass rush, why it's so bad, and maybe how the Detroit Lions can start to fix it in the incoming weeks. Now, we all know that the Detroit Lions pass rush has been really bad. It was really bad last year. It was one of the worst in the NFL. And this year, a lot of fans came into it thinking that this year was going to be different. We brought in Danny Shelton and Nick Williams to be good interior defensive linemen to help our pass rushers. Trey Flowers is healthy. We brought in Julian Okwara. A lot of people thought that this defense was going to get more pressure, was going to get more sacks, and was going to help out the secondary a lot more than they did last season. However, throughout the first month of the NFL season, that could not be farther from the truth, as the Detroit Lions defense as an entirety in this 2020 season so far has only 5 sacks on the season, which is the 5th fewest in the NFL. They've only had 6 hurries, which is the least in the NFL, at a 4.4 hurry percentage, which again is the worst in the NFL at this point. They've only had 10 quarterback knockdowns, which is tied for the 11th fewest in the NFL, which is our best stat by far, but still isn't a very good stat to have for a pass rush. The Detroit Lions only have 21 pressures on the entire season so far, which is by far the worst in the NFL. They sit at a 15.4% pressure percentage in the NFL, which again is the worst in the NFL. And this is not solely on the defensive line. A lot of this isn't in this last stat, but the Detroit Lions as a team have missed 39 total tackles in the first 4 games of the NFL season. So they're averaging missing almost 10 tackles a game in the first month of the season, which is the 4th worst in the NFL. Listening to those stats, you can obviously tell that this Detroit Lions team is not very good at getting the quarterback. They don't put a lot of pressure. They don't get sacks. They don't get a lot of hurries. They have a couple of quarterback knockdowns here and there, but nothing crazy, nothing that really affects the quarterback's throwing motion, nothing that really affects the quarterback's thinking process. The Lions just aren't getting to the quarterback enough. They just aren't getting that pressure. And obviously, if you can't get pressure as a defensive line, if the quarterback has all day to sit back and throw the ball, you're going to get games where Mitch Trubisky throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. You're going to get games where Aaron Rodgers just picks you apart. You're going to get games where Drew Brees and the Saints offense looks better than it has in the entirety of the season before that game, because the defensive line isn't getting there. The defensive line isn't getting pressure, and no matter how talented, no matter how good your secondary is, if your defense is not getting pressure, if you were not getting to the quarterback, if you were not affecting their throws, and if the quarterback has all day to sit in the pocket and make his read, to make his throws, your defense is going to get picked apart. It doesn't matter how good your coverage is, doesn't matter how big, strong, fast, physical your cornerbacks are. I don't care if you have an entire roster of Hall of Fame cornerbacks in their prime on that roster. If the quarterback has all day to sit back there and throw, then they're going to get picked apart, just like what we're seeing with the Lions secondary today. Like, the pass rush, the defense cannot get better until this pass rush gets better. And I think there are a lot of reasons why this does happen, or why this pass rush is so poor. Now, if you look at the individuals on the teams who have gotten a little bit of pressure and some sacks, Romeo Okwara leads the team with 2 sacks on the season so far, should have 4, has missed 2 sacks on the season already. Jamie Collins has 1. He got his sack against the Green Bay Packers in that blowout loss. Trey Flowers has a single sack on the season as well, as he got that in the first game of the season against the Chicago Bears. And Reggie Ragland got a sack last weekend versus the New Orleans Saints late in the game to almost spark a little bit of a comeback there at the end. So only 4 players on this entire roster throughout the first month of the season have gotten a sack on the quarterback, and only 1 player on the team has gotten more than a single sack on the season so far. Now, why are the Detroit Lions so bad? What is going on with the pass rush? What is going on with this front 7 to make it so that the Detroit Lions are such a poor pass rushing team and they can't get to the quarterback to save their life or to save their jobs in some cases? Well, I don't think it's on the individuals. And, let me talk about this first before you go down to the comments and say something. I don't necessarily think it's all on the individual pass rushers as players as much as it is in coaching and, how they're being coached as a unit to play the game. Now, if you look at the individuals on this team, right, you have Trey Flowers, Deshaun Hand, Danny Shelton, Romeo Okwara, Jamie Collins, and Nick Williams rushing the passer as our big 6 primary pass rushers, the guys that we expected to be big names to go get the quarterback this season. Now, if you look at that defensive line, you look at that, and in my opinion, that doesn't sound like such a shabby offensive line. You start Trey Flowers, you start Deshaun Hand, you start Danny Shelton, you start, Romeo Okwara on the other edge rusher. You have Jamie Collins as a pass rushing linebacker, somebody in the jack, maybe somebody is just a blitzing linebacker from off the ball. And then you have Nick Williams as a rotational guy that got 6 sacks a season ago. And as individuals last season, those 6 players, with the exception of Deshaun Hand because he did not play, so just 5 of those players alone got 24.5 sacks in the 2019 season. Just those 5 players, not the rest of the players on the defense, not the depth players, not the role players, not the linebackers. Just those 5 players, Trey Flowers, Danny Shelton, Romeo Okwara, Jamie Collins, and Nick Williams had 24.5 sacks last season. Just those 5 guys had 24.5 sacks. However, they come to Detroit and play as a cohesive unit, and in the first month of the season, only 3 of those players have a sack. Only 1 of those players has more than 1 sack, and the defense as a whole is one of the worst pass rushing teams in the NFL. So I know that these players can rush the passer. I've seen Jamie Collins get 7 sacks last year. I've seen Nick Williams get 6 sacks last year. I've seen Trey Flowers consistently put up 7 sack seasons. I've seen Deshaun Hand take over a game and get a couple sacks in the game and really flip the script on that game. I've seen Romeo Okwara get 7-8 sacks in the season before. So I know as individuals, they can step up and they can get to the quarterback. So why aren't they doing it? Why are the Detroit Lions such a poor pass rushing team? Why do the Detroit Lions just never ever seem to get to the quarterback and never ever seem to make anything happen from that defensive line standpoint? One of the things that I think is a big part of why this pass rush is so poor is because the Detroit Lions refuse to blitz their linebackers, even though they have some very talented linebackers and some linebackers that have a skill set that is very, very strongly suggestive that the Detroit Lions should be blitzing that player. Hint, hint, Jarrad Davis. The Detroit Lions in the 2020 season so far, in the first month, have only blitzed the quarterback 27 times on the season, which is the 4th fewest in the NFL. And they have a blitzing percentage of 19.9, which is a little better than last year. Last year, I believe it was right around 18%. So they're a little bit more blitz heavy this season, but still nowhere near. Actually, they're right at the bottom of the league once again. They're nowhere near the top. They're nowhere near as high as they should be. And I think that lack of pass rush, that lack of extra bodies to just cause chaos, cause confusion, is really detrimental to this Lions pass rushing unit. So if you look at some of the really good pass rushers of the NFL, if you look at some of the really good pass rush teams, they're blitzing a lot. They're sending their linebackers, they're sending their safeties, they're sending defensive linemen. They're causing confusion, they're causing chaos in the box, they're causing communication errors in the offensive line, and that allows free rushers to get through and get to the quarterback. That, if you look at the Patriots, where Bill Belichick is from, last year they ran a lot of cover 0, which means they had 0 safety help over the top. It was literally man to man, and if you were not marking a guy in man coverage as a secondary player, you were blitzing the quarterback. Safeties, linebackers, defensive linemen, everybody was blitzing the quarterback, and that caused a lot of chaos, caused a lot of confusion, and that led to a lot of sacks and a lot of forced turnovers by that New England defense that was the #1 defense in the NFL last season. The Detroit Lions refusing to blitz, the Detroit Lions refusing to use Jarrad Davis and Jelani Tavai as blitzing linebackers, which is something both of them are very capable of doing, and I would say are strengths of their game that they could add to this team if they were given the opportunity. They're just not being played. Jarrad Davis had 6 sacks a few years ago when the Detroit Lions decided to blitz him a lot. In 2018, I believe believe was the season, they blitzed him all the time. I can't remember the exact number, but he blitzed over and over and over again. And it ended up with him getting 6 sacks on the season, having a lot of quarterback hits, having a lot of tackles for loss, and having a very good season where he looked like a really, really solid draft pick. It looked like the first rounder that a lot of people thought he could be. And he looked, and that started to make the critics think, maybe Jarrad Davis can play at a high NFL level. Maybe Jarrad Davis can become a very vital part of this Detroit Lions defense. And then the 2019 season came around and they didn't blitz him at all. They didn't use him at all in the correct way. And, his stats dipped once again, and fans and media sources are starting to question whether or not he was the correct pick indeed. If you're only going to blitz 19% of the time, 20% of the time, it's not enough. You cannot afford it to blitz that few times, especially if your initial pass rush and your front 4 defensive linemen aren't getting to the quarterback. If I could see that, if Trey Flowers was getting to the quarterback every play, if Danny Shelton was forcing really good interior pressure, if Romeo Okwara is getting pressure on the quarterback almost every single play, and the Detroit Lions front 4, their front 4 and Deshaun Hand, Trey Flowers, Danny Shelton, and Romeo Okwara, if they were getting to the quarterback consistently and getting sacks all by themselves, then I could see why you maybe drop guys in coverage. Then I could see maybe why you have a lack in blitzing, but they're not. As we've mentioned, Romeo Okwara only has 2 sacks. Jamie Collins only has 1 sack. Trey Flowers only has 1 sack. These guys in the front 4, our defensive linemen, our big boys up front, aren't getting to the quarterback. They're not forcing pressure. And the only way that the Detroit Lions pass rush is going to get better is if the defensive coordinator in Corey Undlin or Matt Patricia, whoever is calling the defense on a given day, blitzes more. The only way this is going to get better is if the Detroit Lions start sending more people, because the more people you send, the more chaos you have. The more chaos you have, the more likely it is that there's a communication error. And the more communication errors that pop up in the offensive line, the more you get free rushers, the more you get free shots on quarterbacks. The more you get free shots on quarterbacks, the quicker that quarterback needs to speed up his decision making. The quicker he speeds up his decision making, that's when you force turnovers, and that's when your defense becomes elite. It all starts with pressure up front. Again, as I said earlier, it doesn't matter who you have in your secondary. If you aren't getting pressure, your defense isn't going to be good. And at some point, the Lions need to learn that. At some point, after getting beat over and over and over again, and having their defense give up points after points after points, getting scored on 5 drives in a row, eventually the Lions have to figure this out. Eventually the coaching staff has to take a look and say, we need pressure to win games. We need our guys to get there. And if our front 4 aren't getting there, then we need to send our linebackers. If our front 4 aren't getting to the quarterback, then we have to put in Jarrad Davis and let him go get the quarterback. We have to put in Jelani Tavai and let him go get the quarterback. Use the players you drafted to go help your football team win football games. It's not a very complicated process. It's not a very complicated way of thinking, but for some reason, the Detroit Lions their coaching staff just doesn't understand this simple concept that they need to understand if the defense wants to step up and if the organization truly wants to go out and win football games on Sundays. Now, why I think blitzing is a huge part of why the Detroit Lions defense is not getting good pass rush, isn't getting good pressure, I don't think that is necessarily the only reason that we're not getting pressure. I think that there is a huge argument to be made that the Detroit Lions are using the wrong players, and they are putting players in the wrong spots, and they are putting players in the wrong roles for this defense to be effective. Now, I have 2 really key examples of this that came to mind right away when I thought of this, and I'm sure that there are other examples of this, but I couldn't find them right off the top of my head. The first example that I noticed in week 1, the first game of the NFL season, the Detroit Lions took Trey Flowers, right? Our best pass rusher, the guy that led the team in sacks last season, and they thought it was a good idea to have him stand up and drop into coverage 10, 15 yards downfield and cover a wide receiver. It just doesn't make sense. They're dropping Trey Flowers into coverage over and over again, but he's not a coverage guy. He's not even a linebacker. This dude is a defensive end that is designed to go rush the passer. This is a dude that we paid to go get the quarterback, and the Detroit Lions defense coordinator is just dropping him into coverage a lot. It's not once or twice that I saw this. In the first game, he dropped into coverage a lot. And, I've seen it here and there throughout the other games, throughout the first month, throughout the first 4 games. I've seen it a couple other times. Why are we dropping Trey Flowers into coverage? This is our best pass rusher, and you're having him on the field not to rush the passer, but to cover players in space. That is a lapse in judgment on the defensive coordinator. That is a lapse in judgment on Matt Patricia, and that is inexcusable. That is just That's stupid. Like, there's no other way to put that. That is a very stupid decision by the Lions coaching staff, and that is something that needs to get fixed immediately. Trey Flowers cannot be dropping into coverage, especially if we are not getting any pressure without him. Even with him, we're not getting a lot of pressure. So why are you taking your best pass rusher on a defense that doesn't get any pass rush anyway and dropping him into coverage to cover guys in space whose jobs are to make people miss in space? Like, that's just a mismatch that you're putting your player in. You're putting your player in a poor situation where he really has no chance to make a play, really has no opportunity to do anything productive for your team. And, we were just wasting Trey Flowers at this point. Like, he's not rushing the passer enough. He's not getting to the quarterback enough. And at this point, with that kind of play calling, the Lions are legitimately wasting his time in Detroit right now. Another player that comes to mind when I say that players are playing out of position, players are playing in the wrong spot, is Christian Jones. Now, I do not like Christian Jones. Lions fans do not like Christian Jones. I understand that he is just not a good player, but for the sake of argument, let's say that he was, right? Let's say that Christian Jones had a role as a starter on this team. It's definitely not at Jack linebacker, which is where the Detroit Lions have him playing right now. Now, Christian Jones, throughout the NFL season so far, throughout the first 4 games of the season, the first month, has played in 169 snaps for this Detroit Lions defense. Now, that is one of the most on the teams, and a majority of those snaps have come at the Jack linebacker position. If you don't know what the Jack linebacker is, think of Devon Kennard last season. That is what role that Christian Jones is playing in right now, and that is the role the Lions defense has put him in. Now, if the Detroit Lions went out and they cut Devon Kennard, which they did last season, right? They did in this offseason, a guy that had 7 sacks last season, tied for the most on the team. If the Lions cut that guy and they put a different guy in that position, you would expect him to produce, right? If we put Chris Jones in that Devon Kennard spot where Devon Kennard got 7 sacks last season, you would expect Christian Jones to be a pretty good player, right? Well, on those 169 snaps, Christian Jones has 0 hurries, he has 0 pressures, he has 0 sacks, and he has 1 quarterback knockdown that I don't even remember ever seeing. The quarterback might have just fallen over in the pocket for all I know. Like, Christian Jones has had one questionably impactful play of the entire season. He's getting beat in pass coverage. He's getting beat as a pass rusher. He is not getting any pressure for this Lions team. And we replaced Devon Kennard, one of the best pass rushers on the team, for this guy. Like, why is a Christian Jones playing at all, first off? Like, why is Christian Jones playing the Jack linebacker position? It doesn't fit the limited skill set he does have. I don't think he should be playing as a starter at all, but if the Lions are going to play him as a starter, which they seem very determined to do, it should not be at Jack linebacker because he has no pass rush moves, he has no athleticism to get around the edge, he has no ability to get to the quarterback, and he is not even a good blitzer off the other side when players aren't even supposed to be blocking him. Like, the fact that the Detroit Lions are so stubborn and they are refusing to change things around, that they are refusing to put guys like Jarrad Davis at that linebacker position. Try Jarrad Davis at that Jack's position. Try Jahlani Tavai at that Jack position, because I've seen Jarrad Davis have some pass rush moves. I've seen Jarrad Davis get sacks before. I've seen him do some nice things that could work at the Jack position. I've seen Jahlani Tavai get sacks. I've seen him get pressure off the Jack position. I've seen him blitz off that side and get some decent pressure. Like, those 2 players in particular, a former first round and second round draft picks, are sitting on the bench behind a dude in Christian Jones who isn't getting any hurries, any pressures, any sacks on the season. And we have these guys sitting on the bench in Jarrad Davis and Jahlani Tavai that have made more impactful plays on the team in very significantly fewer snaps than Christian Jones. My point in saying this is, the Detroit Lions coaching staff needs to go back to the drawing board. They need to forget everything that they saw in training camp. I don't know if Christian Jones had a good training camp or whatever, but they need to go back. They need to reevaluate the talent that they have on this team and reevaluate how they can use the talent that they have. Because this team is talented. As I said, these players last season had a lot of sacks as individuals. These players last season had a lot of really, really good statistics for their team, and they helped their team win some football games last season. But for one reason or another, the coaching staff isn't using these players correctly, isn't putting them in the right positions, isn't playing them enough at all, or just flat out is making stupid decisions with the players when they are on the field. In my opinion, what the problem is with this Detroit Lions pass rush is the coaches are just being way too stubborn, and they are trying to force a square peg into a circle hole, if that makes sense. Like, they're trying to take Christian Jones, a linebacker that has no pass rush ability, and put him in a pass rushing position. They're taking Jarrad Davis, who is a really good pass rushing linebacker, very very good sideline to sideline speed, very good tackler, very good blitzer, and they are putting him in the middle to go out and cover guys in space, which is by far the weakest part of his game. They are taking Jahlani Tavai, a player that is pretty good all around, and just not putting him on the field as much as he should be, and they're putting him in positions where he's supposed to cover Kyler Murray in space, which, isn't necessarily Jahlani Tavai's best attribute. Jahlani Tavai isn't necessarily the fastest linebacker, so why are we having him cover Kyler Murray in space in week 3? We saw it a couple of times where he got beat, but, again, that falls on the coaching staff for putting them in wrong positions. This coaching staff is just being stubborn. This coaching staff is refusing to change, and until this coaching staff, until the defensive coordinators, until the defensive line coaches, until the linebacker coaches get together, they regroup and they reassess the way that they are playing their players, nothing is going to change. Until the Detroit Lions coaching staff decides that, until they figure out that what they're doing isn't working and they go back to the drawing board and reassess everything that they need to do as a pass rushing unit, this team is not going to get better. And you might be asking, well, when will this happen? When will the coaches decide that this isn't working? When will they decide it isn't good enough? To be totally honest with you, I have no idea. This coaching staff makes mistake after mistake after mistake, and very few times in their tenure with the Lions, very few times in the past 3 years, have I seen the Detroit Lions come out of a really embarrassing loss. Have I seen the Detroit Lions come out of a game where nothing really worked on the pass rush front, nothing really worked from the defensive front. And not one time, I don't believe, have I seen the Detroit Lions come out of a bye week and change the way that they've played defense. Not one time have I seen the Detroit Lions come from one game to another and change the way that they rush the passer. We saw them in week 3 go from a lot of man to a lot of zone, but that doesn't help the passers. Not one time in the past 3 years have I seen the Detroit Lions change up blitz packages. Not one time have I seen them bring out something new from week to week. Not one time have I seen them reassess the talent and re-figure out how to get pressure on the quarterback. So to be totally honest with you, I have no idea if it's going to happen. I have no idea when this coaching staff is finally just going to, put their egos aside and just look at it from a non-biased perspective and say, Christian Jones, you're not getting to the quarterback, you're on the bench. Jared Davis, you can get to the quarterback, go get the quarterback, go get on the field, play that jack linebacker position, take over for Christian Jones. I don't know when this is going to happen. I don't know what needs to happen on the field for the Detroit Lions coaches to take a step back and say this isn't working. Let's go into this bye week and figure out what does work, because I haven't seen them do it so far in their tenures. Now, with all that being said, that is what I think is the problem with the pass rushing, that is what I think is the problem with the pass rush in Detroit. I don't think it's quite on the individuals, quite honestly. I think it falls down to coaching and putting the players in the wrong positions to make plays. I don't think the players are being put in good positions. I don't think the right players are on the field. And until something changes, I don't think it's going to get any better for this Detroit Lions pass rush. Now, with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting everybody know. But if there is no Lions news, then that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Thank you all for watching. Bye, guys.